thanks for joining us today on Coastal and Progressive Rainbow Forum on Society Bites Radio. Today we will be speaking with Tyler. Tyler has a very interesting background. He is part of our diversity and inclusion and history people that we're having on our program. Tyler, he comes from, he's moved into the area here rather recently, and he's been in Florida for a while now, and he's out of Northern Virginia. And he's had an interesting background. He is part of our youth outreach that we're trying to establish to get more younger people involved with us in other areas. Tyler, I'm going to let you take it over and introduce yourself a little bit there and tell a little bit about your background. You've got a fascinating background and you're a university student, I understand. And we want to welcome you and thank you for taking the time. Oh, I also might want to mention here, too, Tyler was a guest this weekend on National Coming Out Day for the state of Florida for the multiple groups, LGBTQ groups, for the Human Rights Campaign, for Equality Florida, for the state LGBTQ Democrats, for several other organizations as well, representing LGBTQ causes. So, Tyler, welcome, and so good to have you here today with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I will first start into my background. I first wanted to start off by saying my thoughts and prayers go out to all the individuals who are currently battling COVID-19 throughout the world. Yes, my name is Tyler, and I was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania area. I grew up there for a good chunk of my childhood, and then in 2009, I had relocated down to the D.C. area, in particular Northern Virginia, where I grew up from there on out, and had the remaining of my middle school years and high school years there in Northern Virginia. And that's really where my life got going. And I knew at a younger age that I was a part of the LGBTQ community, that I was gay. And so had an interesting way of coming forward, and it really is where my story begins.
Excellent. Being an LGBTQ student in school, did you have to struggle with that? I'm assuming you did, because most students do, and there's all kinds of issues they go through. Can you tell us a little bit about what you went through as a student?
Sure, absolutely. So when I was in, not till about high school, I would say, certain individuals that I was maybe in a classroom with, or that I would occasionally maybe see at lunch, perhaps, that would walk on by. They definitely, not everybody, but there were definitely certain individuals that could smell it a mile away, if you will. That's the way I typically would put it. And they knew that I was different, not in a bad way at all, but just knew that I was different and, would go ahead and just say some things that were hurtful from time to time, just some bullying here and there. But thankfully, I went to a wonderful high school where there was a zero bullying tolerance, and I had some wonderful friends and allies there, not just friends around my age, but wonderful teachers, staff, administrators that were with me by my side every step of the way, and I still think about them today. And so just little things like that, but I'm happy now that certain school districts and counties throughout the country have become more understanding of LGBTQ issues, and try to overall speak to the larger community of our people that are not in our community to spread awareness that bullying is unacceptable, and we really need to start moving towards a more accepting society as a whole. And we've made significant progress, but we still have more progress, obviously, left to go. But if that answers that question, overall it's been not so hard, but I did encounter some bullies and people that were just made life a little bit more hard and more challenging in high school. However, so far in my college years, it's been more easier, I would say. and less of a challenge, if you will.
Excellent. I know you did some counseling work for PFLAG and helping people there in Virginia. Can you? I know you can't share names. I'm not going to do that, of course. What you could share, though, possibly, is some stories that stuck with you of people that you talked to and people that you helped give guidance to. That might be helpful to some of our listeners.
Yes, absolutely. I can answer the question. As you mentioned, I cannot list names, but I can answer the question in a way that protects their privacy. So when I was working with the PFLAG organization, I was a youth facilitator and mainly worked with the youth group and within my scope of responsibility would be there for them if they ever had a question or a concern or something that they were battling with like I was in school. I tried to be there for them and as I wish more people like myself were there for me. It's kind of how I viewed the situation and would work with them on, we'd play games during our sessions or group meets and would do every now and then arts and crafts, things like that. I would bring some food in. So overall, it was more of a discussion, I would say, amongst everybody in the group. And we would go over things that were bothering them or things that if they had a great day, we would love to hear their story and they would share that. And I could never intertwine the adult group and youth group in terms of spreading information to their parents or vice versa. We'd have to do a very good job of keeping everything confidential, and I took that very seriously, as everybody else did in our group. And we really, some of the memories I can reflect back on, I think, would definitely be helping to keep families united. And when I switched over to the adult group, I would meet some of the parents and really answer some questions they had. Some of the parents you could tell were maybe more so confused. I wouldn't say upset, but some of them were confused that maybe they had a child that recently had come out to them and they just wanted to know more. Not saying they were angry or happy, they were just, it seemed to me, confused. And I would kind of act as that bridge to help them understand that everything's going to be absolutely okay, and would give them in-depth advice on how to approach your child, whether they be young or older in their adult years. How would you approach them in a comfortable way that doesn't make them feel vulnerable to what they've already been through in life, like myself. So that way you approach them in a way that they feel welcome, warm, and you both could have that wonderful conversation wherever that may take place.
Excellent. I'm thinking here about, what your views are on for the future, where do you see LGBT? What would you like to see in LGBTQ equality? Where would you like to see it go to? I think I'm hoping that most of us want to see that we have the full civil rights of everybody in the country would have. But where would you see the future headed, and what would you like to see as a young person in the LGBTQ community?
It's an outstanding question. I would like to see our country first. I will sort of start in the present day and move forward. I would first off like to see the Equality Act pass through the rest of, I believe it was already passed through the House of Representatives here in the United States, but I'd like to see it pass through the United States Senate so it could become the law of the land once that process is complete. The Equality Act would really help keep individuals who are working and give them full protections to be able to continue to live their lives with respect and dignity, and know that they're secure in the position they hold, regardless of the job or career. Now, thankfully, most companies and positions around the United States would already protect LGBTQ people. However, the Equality Act would kind of be that final push and that final if you will, momentum to get us to where we're at full protection and under the law would recognize all LGBTQ people as having that full right to be able to stay in the position they have and not be in fear of losing their job and putting them in more of a crisis, especially now with the coronavirus, what has happened to our economy. So in terms of also, I'd like to see more, as I mentioned earlier to you in our last discussion, briefly, we went over, school districts and counties throughout the United States. I would like to see more information about LGBTQ issues in sexual education, whether that would be in particular high school health class. When I'll go briefly back in time, and I think it was my sophomore year of high school, I had health class, and I remember we went over all the information in terms of what we need to learn. And the one part I forget, and I would always ask myself in class, for people like myself, we never really had any LGBTQ issues or topics that were kind of injected into a health class in terms of our sexual education course. And I think that is also very important that we have that education available immediately, so that way people that were in the closet, such as myself, could feel perhaps more comfortable and wouldn't feel so isolated the way that I did because of issues like that are not that hard to resolve. They're quite simple. But I'd like to see more measures in our school districts, counties throughout the country, and I believe that the Equality Act, and also I'd like to briefly touch on international policy. I think we have to start focusing more on countries that have not only made, homosexuality and LGBTQ rights criminal. We have to somehow really work on working more with those countries in terms of trying to completely reverse their punishments towards people like myself and all LGBTQ people, so that way around the world and internationally, individuals feel more safe, comfortable, that they would be able to leave their home or wherever they may live and walk down the street and not be worried. There have been times, believe it or not, in my life I have been worried, and so I just think that this can't just be about the United States. It has to be about the entire world. And later in life, I would like to run for public office and hopefully bring these issues to the table. And hopefully by then, I won't have to, but if I still need to, I'd be more than willing to work very hard at not just moving this country to its full potential, but working to get other countries to the best of my ability to where they definitely should be here in current times. So I hope that answers that question thoroughly.
Excellent. Yes. You said, I think you told me you first thought you were gay at a very young age. But when did you, I guess, know for certain or accept it? I mean, that's another way of saying it, too. What age was that, and what were there circumstances around that led you to accepting it, or education that you got, or some way were able to obtain it? You just said you didn't obtain it in school, and that's unfortunately true for a lot of young people. They have to find it out on their own, or through other sources, through the internet or somewhere. They have to find out. What about you? When did you first get inklings that you might be gay? I think you said you were at a young age, and then secondly, on that question, when did you actually accept it and understand it? What point were you in your life, and what items led you to help understand this? Are there any items you can share with us that would help others to understand possibly?
Yes. I first knew, I wanted to first also explain that for myself personally, myself being